Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we go $55 million mode. And who fits the description of the next potential Red Raider hoops victims? Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, diving right back into the thick of it on today's episode. A few different points to get to, including schedule matrices. We're going to know who the Red Raiders are playing in the Big 12 Conference at some point and get into what that includes. Spoiler alert, all the smoke going to be involved in that conversation. Will Texas Tech be a distributor of said smoke? We hope so, not just on the receiving end of that. We'll get to it in just a minute, and want to catch up also with you, Chris, on some things that have been discussed this week, reports nationally as it relates to sort of where we left off on the last episode. I was talking to you about Texas Tech being ready for a new era, a revenue sharing era when it comes to the athletics department and all the things involved. And not only does it seem like, yeah, they're going to be ready for that, but maybe as ready or readier than anyone in the country. I want to get to some of these numbers. You've mentioned them already on this show. $55 million. And the thought of that being reported as potentially the highest figure nationally. I mean, it's a new era, and always, and I got to tell you, I'm loving every minute of it. So thank you to those who have made preparations for just this time, right?
Yeah, and by the way, congratulations to the Cowan family. Good to be back with you and everybody else here. We hadn't talked double nickels last time that we were getting into money and revenue share and all those things. It's weird because there's a lot of hearsay about dollar figures spent on this player or that player or what school or what roster. I think Texas Tech has been, because I told specifically over the weekend from somebody that would absolutely know, this is what we spent. I'm like, you want that out there? He's like, yes, I do. I'm like, okay. And then it's been everywhere, but this includes revenue share. Okay, so we're clear. But with the front loading and with the different things, you were able to kind of get ahead of the curve, set yourself up, because you've spent some money on players that are going to be here for multiple years. You have been able to do some things with the front load, and it's been reported that other schools have kind of done some of this too. But you're able to take a player and say, we're giving you money up front. We're not going to count you toward any of our revenue share. And so you're able to save that revenue share to use later on this year as you see fit, which I think is important to note because it gets you ahead for next year, the way that these dates work and the way the calendar works and all those things. That can be a bit confusing. Maybe there will come a time where we can kind of explain that better. But Texas Tech used the system to their benefit because they had, again, motivated money is what I've liked to phrase it as. But you've obviously heavily spent in three sports. And since we last left you, I mean, softball has been having a hell of a portal party. I mean, you had white chocolate, Jason Williams on campus, I guess in the last day or so. His daughter, Mia, who's a stud out of the University of Florida. And they've just been adding name after name. And again, it's business that was conducted before this thing was passed. And so people are like, so how are they doing this? Well, work smarter, not harder. And I think they absolutely did. And all of that news is not even out yet on some of the things that they were able to do prior to the new set of rules. But
well, and let me give everybody a refresher going back to Monday if they need it, because I'm still remembering what you said when we talked literally deadline deals and the efforts leading up to that point by whatever program. You mentioned softball efforts and you mentioned basketball efforts, and we talked about some things that we'd probably learn about in coming days. So I'm still thinking round ball as well. And if it's anything as exciting as what we've seen come out since then with the softball program, it's going to be a fun month of June. So still looking forward to that. But yeah, this is the result of those efforts as you push towards sort of that line in the sand. But Chris, I think it's just kind of wild to think big picture wise, and we'll see as these things ebb and flow. But reports talking about highest paying in the nation as far as this effort goes, that's beyond rarefied air if you're just one of, and we'll see how it works out. But that's kind of hard to process as a Red Raider.
Yeah, and there's already many that are saying that Texas Tech's demise is on the horizon because they're not going to be allowed to do this anymore. We'll see. I don't know if we know what, again, as we talked last time, I don't know what the new normal looks like. But I think that you have tried to create some I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this. You've created some momentum. You have been very transparent about what you've wanted to do, and I say you as in Texas Tech in general, in a few of the sports, namely 3 of them. I think track and field is in a good spot, and there's some other ones. We'll see what happens with like baseball and some of the other sports as it relates to some of these things. But I think that there will be a new normal. I don't know if we know fully what that looks like. You can't, going forward, you won't be able to go sign a JT Toppin for $4 million. Those days are over, potentially. But I think you tried to make hay while the hay was there, and we'll kind of see what it gets you. And plenty of people will be looking for you to fail. Plenty of people will be, I don't know if supportive is the right word, but you're definitely on the radar. And I think that you have been polarizing in some ways, because I think that whenever you see now Texas Tech or you see Matador Club, people feel differently about it than they did before. Some positively, some may be negative, some may be jealous. Some may be like, hell yeah, man. I mean, whatever. But it makes you feel something. And I think that Texas Tech has tried to put themselves in a good spot in some of these sports for the foreseeable future because of some of the dollar figures. And they've heavily invested here. And I think that hopefully, it guarantees you nothing, but hopefully the product on the floor or the field or the diamond, whatever, it shows it, because they have certainly tried to put very competitive, because, I mean, Cowan, with the 3 sports we're talking about, what does this $55 million get you? Preseason wise, we have a grasp that Joey's team is going to be at the very minimum a Big 12 title contender. Maybe it's a top 15 team. Maybe it's a top 20 team. Maybe it's not ranked, but maybe that's just a matter of time. But it's very talented. We know that. Basketball-wise, everywhere you look, people that do these things, Texas Tech is a preseason top 10 team. It may be 5th, it may be 10th, and then softball, I'd be willing to bet you they're going to be preseason top 5. And so, I mean, if I'm missing another example on where some of these dollars went, feel free to add anything else in, but those are the 3 that I think we've been spending the most time on as it relates to this dollar figure here.
Right. And the results are very positive so far. In a couple of those cases, national title contending worthy kind of positive. You're a breath away from a Final Four, and you're, I don't know, an intentional walk away from a national championship softball game. But the returns have been incredible. You get anything in that kind of neighborhood from a football standpoint, which would mean like playoff berth and a win or something at least, if you're putting it in that type of context. And we're going to be in high cotton, to say the least. And yeah, it's polarizing, I guess, to idiots. So I'm just seeing all this about back in my day, we were playing for our education only. And then what'd you do with that? You pursued dollars.
Yeah.
But the category of 18 to 22 is outlawed when it comes to pursuing dollars in exchange for their efforts. Sure, bud, whatever. And yeah, I'm going bud on you, pal. I'm going pal on you, chief. Going chief on you, guy. You're all of those things. I am curious, Chris, before we move on to Big 12 basketball scheduling matrix talk, which I know everyone is excited about. We'll get to potential victims for the Red Raiders in just a moment within league play. But I'm curious how you feel about something else I've seen discussed, and I really think among potential dangers, Texas Tech is in this category.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to really win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Texas Tech is in this category. When it comes to prominent, well-resourced or a lot of energy and effort going into these types of programs, prominent men's basketball and football for Power 4 conference programs, it seems like there's going to be some tug of war here as compared to some others who maybe don't have that, whether it's outright, hey, we don't even have a football team, like we've talked about in some Big East context, or otherwise say we don't care about football or we don't care about men's basketball in some context. I mean, how do you see that playing out when it comes to trying to balance those that really do row your boat, but you can't, I guess, give the same amount everywhere, can you? There's got to be a give and take of some sort, I suppose.
There's been two storylines, I think, since this House bill has been passed and everybody has had some days to process. There's been two things that I think people are talking about the most. You've touched on one of them. And what Cowan is saying is like, okay, this is everything from some schools could say we just can't compete in football, but we could really separate ourselves in a softball or a men's hoops or whatever. Pick your sport. Like we could really be a contender there. So let's go all in on these things or heavily weighted, whatever. And just kind of, I don't know at the end of the day what schools will ultimately do. Like, I think that as the College World Series is about to get going, the SEC was so heavily dominant as it relates to like NCAA hosts in baseball. They have paid a lot of money and played ball big time from a baseball standpoint in that league in general. I think only two schools of theirs made the College World Series. But are you telling me that some of these SEC schools are going to like not give some of their money to football and save it and give it to baseball? I find that very hard to believe. Kentucky may say, we like the hardwood. I mean, and then you get like the Big East schools, the Creightons, the Villanovas, the St. John's, the whatever, that don't have a football program. And I don't know if we know what all that looks like just yet on how you'll divvy it up, or what the gray area is. I think it's going to take some. It's kind of like the COVID year of expansion, not expansion. The COVID year of extra year of eligibility is what I meant. Like you never knew who was eligible and who was not. They had that extra year. I think some of this is going to take a bit to cycle through because you're going to have to get through the cycle of who front loaded stuff, who's actually operating on the real number. Because several schools for this first year are not going to be operating on that because they worked ahead of the system. And softball did it, basketball did it. I think obviously Tech football did it, and a variety of other schools and programs around the country did it. The other thing that I think has come out about the settlement as it relates to all the money being spent here that has been interesting is like Deloitte, this NIL Go scenario, everything from, hey man, just don't report your deal or just don't claim ignorance there. Well, nobody told me this is what I was supposed to do. And then And then it's almost as if these schools have collectively agreed to not fight it, and that they've wanted rules, they wanted guardrails, protect us from ourselves. And so we're all kind of agreeing here not to fight it. That's almost what you're hearing. Somebody will fight it. Maybe it's an agent, but like a player really can't, and a school can't if they've really agreed to do this. But again, I very early on in these stages, and it's just going to take a while to really like kind of process all what's going on here. And I know you're smiling because it makes the head spin on kind of where all we're headed.
I like
here.
the descriptor of protect them from themselves. I'm thinking of like these guys being a trembling hobo in an airport bathroom. Sir, put the knife down. Step away from the knife. I mean, and it's sort of on point. So I get why you describe it that way, or why they would think of it that way. And the power struggle that's going to have to play out between these revenue generating sports, which in 99.9999% of cases is football and men's basketball. That's it. The power struggle that's going to play out is going to be very difficult for some, because it's going to come down to economics at one point in time, because these are the programs that fund your athletics department, period. So what keeps the boat rowed, to go back to a paddling analogy? And it's just like a cherry on top or bonus if you can have a lot of fun with your softball program or your track and field program. I'd love to see some of the SEC baseball revenue numbers. I don't know if even they are making a profit or certainly anything significant. I doubt it. It's just fun for them. They love to do it, so they do it. And that's kind of the way it goes. You're just lucky if you can really field those kind of teams or have that kind of support, I think, in some of those areas, Chris. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're hanging your hat on your softball program to fund your athletics department, you're going to be insolvent soon. There's no question. So it's about which of these really keep the lights on do we go hard into, while also, of course, having the desire to want to do both, because everything helps and everything counts. But I hope that Texas Tech is able to find that balance, and it's going to be really interesting to see maybe some ebb and flow competitively for programs elsewhere that aren't.
Because
really
Callan,
struggling.
Like I think on paper, and I think Texas Tech has been transparent with this, like Texas Tech softball program's revenue share is going to be like $150,000 for the program for the entire year going forward. And so,
well, there's the context sport to sport too. We've talked about like how far does a dollar go for a track and field program or a softball program versus a football program? And that's a totally different type of category too, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It's just, again, and there will be some, this is all fascinating, but now we're on the other side and it'll just be kind of interesting. But for example, just softball, because it's recent. Some of these players that you've just added, because you've just added like the On3 had a portal ranking out there for softball, which who thought you and I would be sitting here talking about portal rankings for softball? But I think people have enjoyed it. But for example, you just added like the third, the fifth, the sixth, a couple of them in the 20s, as far as like best players available and all that. And it's, as we told you a week ago and 2 weeks, you were going to have one of the top portal classes, if not the best in the country. Well, guess what? This is what you're going to have. But some of these players aren't, you're not having to worry about rev share and all these different things, simply because you have signed them to NIL deals that worked ahead and front loaded it, that the money will be paid out and conveyed to them prior to July 1, which is when this whole thing starts. And some of them have multiple years left to play here, and you've already kind of taken care of that. It's a bit tricky way to do business, but this is what you had to do, in that so it's like, wait a second, you're going to pay me all this money for, and I haven't even, had one at bat or one start on the mound or one start in the lineup, whatever sport you're talking about. Oh yeah, that's what we're saying. And it's a bit tricky because typically it's like, pay me for the work I've done. Well, you haven't done any work yet, but we're going to pay you anyway. We know what you can do. this is the way you had to operate if you wanted to get involved in this. And you still hope that motivation is there and that they still buy into the team and all these things. But this is what Tech and many schools have done to try to set themselves up for the right now and then some off into the future and not have to touch some of that rev share money or anything like that.
Yeah, look, it's a fun time because you've been right in the thick of it and you've had an opportunity to get through these things with great success on paper, a couple of those in practice, because there's been proof of performance from a basketball and obviously a softball standpoint now. And the transfer portal has been good to you, I think, from a football program standpoint as well, even before this portal party.
Yeah.
But the biggest splash that you've made so far, we've still yet to see actually compete, that being this most recent football class. So looking forward to a maybe proof of performance we can all enjoy very soon on that front. All right, Chris, before we get out of here, let's get the dusters and shades on. It's Keanu Reeves' favorite portion of the program. It's time to go Matrix mode. Big 12 basketball foes for the Red Raiders this time around. Some tea leaves fallen in some recent days as we're figuring out maybe who's going to be there twice, who's going to be there once. And we now see revealed first the ones that you're getting 2 times around. It is BYU, it is Houston, it is Colorado that you'll see home and away. Home exclusive opponents look like this: Cincinnati, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Texas Christian, and Utah. And then you will visit away from home Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, Iowa State, Central Florida, and West Virginia. You can't tiptoe through the tulips in the Big 12 Conference, Chris, but this does seem like, as you look at those double timers, BYU and Houston, you think about Arizona, Baylor, Iowa State on the road. To spin it in a very optimistic way, this looks like a lot of resume building opportunity for Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders coming up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I was, it was leaked about the BYU and Houston thing. We've known that for about a day or so. And I thought, whoa, because these are 4 games against what you're going to think are going to be preseason top 10 teams. And I was, so how exactly did they put this together? I think that it's pretty clear this had nothing to do with geography or travel or the student athlete, right? This is about juicy matchup. This is about headline matchup, and let's lean into this a bit. But they do you do catch a bit of a break in that, it's Colorado is the other one, because I think that Colorado will be solid, but they will not be preseason top 10 like Houston and BYU.
All due respect, Colorado. All due respect.
That's right. That's right. Now, away only. So the Arizona and Arizona State trip, I wonder if you'll do those, like that'll be like a Saturday, Tuesday scenario. I think that's kind of the way that it was set up for a lot of schools last year, kind of like how Tech did the BYU and the Utah game. I think going to Waco. This is going to be tricky. As I look at the away only, it's fascinating to me because, like, you're going to go, Grant's going to go play his old boss and Scott Drew, and then he's going to have to go play his protege in Ross Hodge at West Virginia. But like the Arizona, that's a tough road trip. I mean, like, they're going to be good again. Iowa State is going to be good again. Baylor is going to be good again. So those are 3 very difficult road matchups. So you talk about resume opportunities. Absolutely. UCF. Chris, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, those you already mentioned on the road, regardless of how good the team is too, I'm thinking about some really difficult environments. Iowa State, Arizona, West Virginia. You think about some of the lighter ones in the league, maybe Utah, Texas Christian, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State. They're coming to you this time. So you're also just getting some tough trips in general, kind of regardless of who's on the floor for them.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. The way that they put this matrix together is because I've heard the interview with the folks at the Big 12. They will tell you some of it may not have any rhyme or reason to it. Some of it is very intentional. There's some protected rivalry, and this is what, like, your home and away scenario is interesting because you don't really have this natural. There is no Arizona State or BYU, Utah scenario on your, Kansas State. There is no natural like, okay, we're guaranteed to lock this one series in or anything like that. You don't really have that. So I was curious what all this would look like. And then some of the home only and away only is kind of a reverse from last year in a way. But I think obviously hosting both Kansas schools, hosting Oklahoma State, TCU, Utah, and then Cincinnati. I mean, I'm glad I don't have to go to Cincinnati this year because their chili sucks up there with the cinnamon in it and all that stuff. Glad I don't have to sit in a cramped Fog Allen Fieldhouse next year, but I do unfortunately have to go to Waco, which is my least favorite of the Big 12 cities. Such as and the Arizona trip, it was half of it was great last year, but the weather was great and all those things, but you knew this was going to be a difficult schedule. And some will claim, we got hosed or we cut a break, whatever. But I just would offer this up. It's 2 fewer games. And as Cowan said earlier in the show, you said something about like, hey, we want the smoke, right?
I want it.
Houston went 19-1 in this deal last year. And they survived it. They got to the title game, but the cream will rise to the top. And you've added depth to your roster. You've got a very difficult schedule on paper. It's a very juiced up home schedule. Because, I hope people realize that BYU is going to have the number 1 pick in the draft on their team. And Houston is going to be thought to be either first or second in the preseason. And you may end up seeing the other one in the Bahamas, which since we last talked, that has now become official, is that you are going to the Bahamas in mid-November and playing in that tournament. And if you win and Purdue wins, you're going to see them November the 21st, I guess it would be, in the Bahamas. And if they're not first, they're going to be second, more than likely. So your schedule is just flat, loaded. And hey, man, bring it on. This is what you want. So you've got and your roster may not be finished being added to.
I wanted to ask you about this before we got out of here, because I am hoping we're a distributor of some of said smoke, as I mentioned earlier in the program, and maybe still some ammo to add to aid in that effort coming up. You mentioned when we were talking about some deadline efforts as far as adding to rosters here or there, specifically softball and basketball efforts underway. Are we still standing by or hanging on for maybe some basketball developments to be divulged?
Potentially. There are no guarantees here. I think you've set yourself up to potentially continue adding to your roster. I think that is a bit tricky. I don't want to talk around it. It's just like there are no guarantees. In other words, let's say, for example, hypothetically, there is a player that is going through the draft process, and should he pull out of the draft, I think he's got an extremely soft place to land based on contract that would have been executed prior to the deadline of the House settlement passing. If he stays in the draft, you tear said contract up and away you go. But I think if said player is going to college, seems like a very likely landing spot. Again, that's why I say no guarantees here.
That's an interesting hypothetical.
Yes, it is. And then that may not be the only thing going. There is another potential option. And this is weird because as I sit here and talk to you, could you add 2 players? Could you add 1? Is it an either or scenario? Would you add both? There could be a scenario where you add neither. But this is just, it's kind of, and so again, as it plays out, we'll be able to kind of add some context and talk you through it. And I'm not trying to talk in circles. It's just like you were trying to work smarter, not harder, and create some instances where you had business conducted prior to you having to jump through a bunch of hoops and deal with some database of an NIL Go scenario and all that stuff.
I still crack up at the name. Can't wait for the first brand change.
Well, and some are already calling it NIL can go to. I mean, like, you know, I mean,
I'm telling you, they should have gone more brass tacks, like NIL no or NIL terror squad, something along those lines.
Yes.
But that's just me. All right. That's why you stay to the end of the program for
$600.
Just totally random examples of situations that could play out.
Yes.
All right, Chris, appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed it. We'll have another go around before we wrap up the week, and we'll get into the mailbag. So looking forward to it, and we'll see you then.
Thank you all for being patient with us. Cowan's adding to the family. I've been out of pocket for a little bit dealing with my 17-year-old golfer, Cowan had a lot more fun than I did. I can assure you that. We back, baby.
9 months ago, I was having a pretty good time, and then there was some fun. We're out of time anyway. Chris, appreciate you. Appreciate everybody for being out there. As always, get subscribed on YouTube and anywhere you get podcasts. And, of course, thanks to the everydayers for always riding along, and shout out to the Matador Mob for being out there. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.